Hey everyone, it's GreenEyedGuide. In manufacturing, there's a system called the 5S methodology. This is a system of 5 steps that all start with the letter S that help make a workplace function better by making it an easier place to work. So today, I want to introduce you to the 5S of caffeine. The purpose of the 5S of caffeine is to make your life function better by making it easier to get more energy with less caffeine. Ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Caffeine at Midnight podcast, a short, no BS, science-based podcast for people who drink caffeine and work beyond the 9 to 5. I'm your host, Danielle Robertson-Rath, also known as Green-Eyed Guide. I research caffeine, energy drinks, and fatigue in the workplace. I'm the author of Are You a Monster or a Rockstar? A Guide to Energy Drinks, and How to Get Shit Done When You Feel Like Shit. Oh, by the way, I kind of like the S word, sorry. You can learn more about me, what I do, my books, my educational background, all that good stuff at greeneyedguide.com. For now, grab your favorite caffeinated beverage and your favorite note-taking app, and let's do this. The bad news is there is no magic potion that will make you feel alert and happy all the time. Even though I'm the leading expert in the science of caffeine and energy drinks, caffeine is not a substitute for proper sleep. However, the good news is, when a full night's sleep isn't possible, I use the 5S of caffeine to help me get through the day. You can read my blog post, The 5S of Caffeine for Sleep-Deprived Mamas, on the Lake Country Sleep website. I'll put the link in the show notes or the captions, but if you visit lakecountrysleep.com/blog, you can find it. In that blog post, I go over the 5S of caffeine more as it relates to sleep-deprived parents. But today in this podcast episode, I'm going to talk about the 5S of caffeine for anyone that's sleep-deprived, whether it's an infant or your job that's depriving you of sleep. Okay, so here's the 5S of caffeine. The first S is sip. It takes 15 to 20 minutes for caffeine to kick in. We talked in a previous episode about how caffeinated strips and chews kick in faster and caffeine pills take longer to kick in. But if you're drinking your caffeine, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes for that caffeine to kick in, for it to peak in your bloodstream. One way to get more energy with less caffeine is to give those first few glorious sips of your coffee a chance to kick in before you drink the whole cup. There's a chance that you may not need the entire cup, which means you'll feel alert without having to drink the whole thing, without having and consuming that whole dose of caffeine. More energy, less caffeine. Furthermore, don't discount the placebo effect. When we feel like we're about to get a reward, our brain fires dopamine. So that means sometimes just the act of buying a cup of coffee or cracking open that caffeinated beverage is enough to fire that dopamine in your brain, making you feel happy and more alert without even having that sip of caffeine. Again, more alert with less caffeine. That's the name of the game. The second S is skip. When we're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, meaning zombie level exhausted, not just normal tired, drinking caffeine is not a good idea. I've elaborated about this in a previous Caffeine at Midnight podcast episode, and I'll put a link in the show notes or the captions to that previous episode here. But the point is, there are times when having caffeine can backfire, making you feel more unfocused and more emotionally burned out than you were beforehand. So it's important to know when to skip your caffeine. And your handy little acronym there is if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, or HALT. Then you need to halt or you need to skip and not have your caffeine in that situation. The third S is to stop. Caffeine's half-life is 3 to 6 hours, meaning that's how long it takes half of the caffeine you drank to leave your body. As a result, if you have caffeine late in the day, it could sabotage your sleep and create an unfortunate cycle. For example, if you drink caffeine too close to bedtime, you won't get good quality sleep, which means you'll wake up tired, which means you'll need more caffeine the next day. Then you'll get even worse sleep and need more caffeine, and so on and so forth. The secret is to know when to stop drinking caffeine. And you can do this with a little bit of math. So even if you work the night shift and you don't have a normal schedule, this is math that can help you. Before you brew that coffee or open that energy drink, step 1, figure out how much caffeine is in your drink. Step 2, divide that number by 2. Step 3, figure out what time it is. In other words, just look at your watch. Step 4, add 4 hours to the current time. So if it's 2 o'clock, then your answer would be 6 o'clock. Step 5, ask yourself, would I drink the answer to step 2 when it's the answer to step 4? So before you have that Starbucks Grande brewed coffee at 3 o'clock, ask yourself, would I drink 1.5 cups of coffee at 7 o'clock? If the answer is no, then you shouldn't have that coffee at 3. That's how you can figure out whether or not it's too late in the day to have your caffeine based on the caffeine half-life. I'll put a link to this handy little graphic I made in the show notes. It has a little clock and it has some examples in case my math and my steps made this all confusing. The 4th S of caffeine is switch. If you work out, chances are you don't do the same set of exercises every single time. That would be really boring. In the same way, you shouldn't drink the same caffeine every single time. First of all, it's really boring, and there's a whole world of caffeinated beverages out there. Also, you need to adapt how much caffeine you're drinking based on how tired you are. This switching step of the 5S is basically the premise behind my 5 levels of fatigue system. In that system, for every level of fatigue, it corresponds to a different type of tiredness, from boredom to burnout. As a result, every level of fatigue calls for a different solution, and there's a different solution, get it? Because a liquid is a solution, as well as different actions you can take to lower your level of fatigue. Here's how to switch up your caffeine, whether or not you drink coffee or energy drinks. First of all, always start with water before caffeine. Dehydration and boredom can make you tired, so if you drink water, that's a good way to make sure whether you're tired because you're bored or you're tired and you actually legitimately need caffeine. So start with water. Second, pick your coffee or your caffeinated drink to match how tired you are. Save the extra shots of espresso or the ultra strong energy drinks for the most intense energy emergencies. I would recommend here also that you pick up my latest book, How to Get Shit Done When You Feel Like Shit, because in that book I have a whole system. I mean, the whole book is about using the 5 levels of fatigue to switch up your strategies, meaning your physical actions and your mindset, as well as the drinks that you pick. So go pick up that book. That'll help you with the switching step of this 5S. And finally, the 5S of caffeine, the 5th one, is sleep. There comes a point when no amount of caffeine can save you. The only solution is to get some sleep. Think about flying with small children. You have to put on your own mask first, right? The same goes for getting sleep. You can't help other people, whether it's your offspring or your teammates, if you're constantly neglecting yourself. So there you have it. That's the 5S of caffeine. Sip, skip, stop, switch, and sleep. I hope that was helpful. Thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would really appreciate it if you shared it with at least one person. Word of mouth works great. You can also take a screenshot or share the link on any social media channel you like best. Just remember to tag me at GreenEyedGuide. You'll also find a lot more information about me, what I do, and some freebies at greeneyedguide.com/freebies. Take care. Bye-bye.